Hi everybody, welcome to this video. We are doing something a little different, quite casual. It happens to be a snow day today and I'm just in the middle of having brunch, and I thought, why don't we set up the table and kind of eat and talk together. I've been thinking about making a video regarding my 2020 outlook for the new year, and as a lot of people say, the new decade. But I really hummed and hawed over how I want to film it. You know, should it just be a regular sit down video? Should it be something more thoughtful and creative? And at the end of the day, maybe we just kind of have brunch together and chat and think about what's going to happen for the next year and the start to the next 10 years. Now, I hope you don't mind. I'm kind of eating and talking at the same time, but I'll try not to, get my words too mumble jumble together. You are a little bit further away than usual. I do have the mic on, and I'll try to project my voice a little further toward you, but I hope that this would just be like a nice little catch-up type of conversation over pate on a little bit of Turkish bread and with some cucumbers. This is my newly discovered favorite of this week, and I am now over the moon about pate. Delicious. So I think it's hard to talk about 2020 without going back a little bit and looking over at what has transpired in the previous year. And I will say that moving out into my own space has really given me the separation, the mental, physical, emotional space to really think about who I am as a person, who I want to be as a person, what is important to me, what values are important to me, what brings me joy and happiness, and not only look at what I want in those areas, but also what I'm missing in those areas. So for me, I think 2019 was a great almost wake-up call to my life, not only starting, at the end of a decade and starting another, doing things, having done things like finishing up my university degrees, going into my first big proper job, if you will, that at the time I was hoping could turn into a long-term career path, and then just revisiting what working and living and what I want to get out of life altogether. But one thing that's really come to light at the end of last year, especially when I started another year of work, is that, well, I think I wanted more out of life than just a regular 9 to 5, and then almost in a way slaving away in order to save up or to have a so-called retirement that is so much of what people of my parents' generation and my grandparents' generation really wish and hope for me and my brother and stuff like that. But that didn't necessarily align with the way that I wanted to live my life. I was incredibly stressed. Actually, I still am in the same job, in the same position. But at the moment of realization, it really came about that I wanted to make some much more thoughtful life decisions, looking into the long-term future. Like, what did I really want my days and my life to look like? Is it worth slaving away 40 plus hours a week, doing whatever you need to do to make money in order to do the things that you like, but also quite physically and emotionally not having the energy to be able to do your hobbies, because all you want to do is just sleep and rest on the hours that you're not at work. So that began to weigh on me very heavily, and I think that in itself is very much what is driving my goal and the way I want to pursue my life and make changes for the new year. So kind of what does that look like and what does that entail? I've somewhat broken it down into 5 different key points that will hopefully guide my actions and my thoughts in somewhat of a new life direction, I would say. I know some people like to assign a keyword or an inspirational word for their year. And if that were me, I would certainly say that my word for 2020 is going to be happiness. Not to say that, the last couple years weren't happy and there weren't moments of happiness, but really understanding what the word happiness in the context of my own life and my own beliefs, what that means to me. What does that entail? What do I want and or need in order to feel that sense of personal happiness? And this is going to be so different for everybody depending on your own values, your environment, your family, your friendships, and yourself, how you are and how you perceive these things. But happiness, I think, is the biggest word for me going into this year and hopefully for the next couple of years and maybe the decade. Now, coming from that, the first goal or resolution I want to bring into this year is to explore more personal joys. And that could be anything. I haven't quite limited myself in terms of what that looks like. I think it's more about having those experiences, trying new things to decide what other things out there in the world really bring me that sense of joy and personal satisfaction. You will know that I love to sew and craft, and that is one of my personal joys I've held on to for many decades. But I want to see what else is out there. I can be a little reserved and picky when it comes to hobbies and new experiences, but that doesn't always mean that once I try those things, I won't decide that they do bring me a lot of joy and that it's really fun and I want to try those further. So I think I tend to be very cautious when it comes to trying new things, and this is going to be the year that I will hopefully try loads of other activities I haven't done before and just explore in this current time in my life what are my personal joys. Now, speaking of trying new things, number 2 in my resolutions list is to travel and explore places less visited. As a whole, growing up, I did a good number of trips with my family, but we were not a household that really went out on adventures. I felt like my dad especially was a big homebody. He enjoyed being around the comforts of home, and in a way I am too. But at the same time, where I am right now is really urging me to go and see new things, which I'm hoping will bring different layers of perspective into my life. So at the end of last year, 2019, I actually booked my very first solo trip. I've never traveled solo before. I've done a couple trips with just 1 or 2 friends, some close friends. I've done family trips and multi-family trips, but I booked myself an Airbnb out there somewhere, which I will share with you, I think, in another mini video later on. I don't want to give it away yet, but I'm going on a solo trip by myself for a couple of days just to get a feel of a new city, a new place, to get out of all of this, and also in a way to get out of my own head, to have just something new but not too different. I'm still staying in North America, so it won't be too unfamiliar, but I'm quite excited about going on this multi-day trip. Now, in the same vein, going to places less explored might also mean going to more local activities around the city. I will say, because I get so tired after a work week, I'm quite lazy about going to local events and checking out the activities that are happening. But there are certainly loads of things going on, especially as we get into spring and summer. that will be really fun to visit and go see. My current thing right now is to get myself to go visit somewhere, or a shop or a part of town that's really inspiring, or to get a little treat Friday afternoon after work. Like Friday evening, afternoon to evening, is kind of my special time of the week where I'm not cumbered by chores, I'm not cumbered by expectations. Work is done, the weekend hasn't quite started yet, and that is the best time. So I've been doing things like going to Granville Island. This week I'm going to go to one of my favorite local-ish Chinese restaurants, Chinese fusion restaurants. I'm going to go have some barbecue duck, like stuff like that, that really gives you something to look forward to, and going to places maybe you normally wouldn't make time to go. Number 3, I want to talk about reducing unused possessions. I can't remember which book I was listening to or reading where they had mentioned, having a lot of tangible objects. You gotta think about whether those objects are worth the price you are paying to keep them, to home them, to repair them if they get broken, to clean them, dust them off, have them sit in a place in your home that you essentially have to pay rent to. And I will say, if you live in the greater Vancouver area, rent is atrocious. Even for a full-time working professional making on paper a very decent earning, rent is quite crazy over here. And that really struck a chord with me. I look at all my objects and my things, loads of which bring me joy, by the way. But it really got down to thinking, when push comes to shove, are these things worth taking up space in my life, physical space that I have to rent a place, an apartment, a house, whatever, that is large enough to house all of my personal possessions and objects? Now, I will say, I am not a minimalist. I don't think that is really the right term to describe the direction I want to move towards, but I definitely feel this urge and draw to start reducing some of my tangible physical possessions and really hone it down to what not only I want or need to have a beautiful and joyful life, but also the little sprinkles of things that are kind of unnecessary but bring me great joy. And then everything else just kind of needs to go. So I've started doing things to declutter all parts of my life, and so far I've only really done the makeup and beauty, but that is a huge feat in itself. Because I've been beauty blogging for so long, I have amassed a lot of products, so going through that and really curating and being realistic was super helpful for me. I do have a video coming up on that. I filmed that one separately, so we won't talk too much about that right now, but I am really looking forward to downsizing my load of possessions, and maybe by then I can move into even a smaller space or possibly a cheaper space, and meaning I won't have to work so much in order to still have a very fulfilling life. Now let's talk a little bit about number 4, which is about crafting and creating with purpose. And this, I think, stems from number 3 about reducing my personal possessions. One of my hobbies is, as a maker, to create things. But when you create, I don't want to say you make something out of nothing, but in a certain way you do. You take fabric or paint and a canvas and you make something, be it a painting, a dress, a shirt, whatever, some home furnishings. You are still making more things. So as sewing and crafting is one of my personal hobbies, I really want to think about the balance between what I am creating and making, and then the balance between being a maker and not owning a bajillion possessions, right? And I think it comes down to creating and crafting with a purpose, and that whole slow movement. I think you can still very much be a maker, but make more thoughtfully and be more conscious about what kind of things you are making, what is your long-term purpose of that object in your life, and just approach the whole makers process with a bit more thought and pre-planning and thinking, and thinking about materials, thinking about, well, is this a shirt that I'm making just because it's fun, 100% fun, or is this something I can see myself wearing over and over again that will really live in my wardrobe? Things like that, to be a lot more conscious when I'm sewing and when I'm making stuff. Side note, if you also love pate, this is my first time trying it. I played it super safe. I think I got like country sausage or something along those lines. Let me know, what is your favorite way to have pate? What do you pair it with? And what is your favorite variety of pate? Because now, currently, I am all about it. Now, the last thing that I have on my list, and I just made a really brief list of 5 things, not to get myself overly tangled up in how it's worded, but just distilling the energy I want to put into the new year into just a few key points. So I do only have 5. The last thing I have on my list, number 5, and I only have 5 things as part of my resolutions, is about taking care of myself with more consistency. And bits of that is sprinkled throughout number 1 to 4 and what we've just talked about. But I think the consistency part is quite interesting, and that's not something I've done a lot of. I'll have spurts when I'm super burned out and I say, oh, I need to go do something to take care of myself. But I think the long-term goal is to create maintenance habits or routines that continuously rebalance that equilibrium. So instead of waiting for yourself, or for myself, as I'm talking about me, to go into a crash and then be like, oh no, put the brakes on, let's sort this out. Instead of just waiting for those moments to hit, it seems to make so much more sense to take care of myself with more consistency. So I'm continuously maintaining myself, both emotionally or physically or mentally, whatever that I need, so that I don't get to those spots of just burnout and crash and then needing to take a complete shutdown break. That's going to be hard. It's really going to be about making routines and then sticking with those routines and still doing them even though you feel like you may not need them at that time. Especially for someone like me, it's super important, and that's something that really came to light in the past year. Doing things like either my hobbies, or making sure that I'm listening to my body when I eat. I don't necessarily go on diets or be very restricting, but listening to, oh, if I am really feeling and craving this, just have a little bit of this. It's not, the end of the world, even if it may not be the healthiest thing that I've eaten during the week. So I think to wrap up this video, 2020 is looking very promising. I think 2020 is going to be a beginning to a journey of self-discovery that is unencumbered by other people's expectations and voices and nagging. A lot of it has to do with the nagging. Because now I have the space, the physical, mental capacity to really start thinking about, as a grown-up now, as someone who's really going to be living with myself for the next couple of decades, what matters to me. And if you're kind of in the same boat, if my last couple of videos really resonated with you, I really hope that this will also be a direction that you will look at and explore for this new year. How does the world work? How would you like it to work? How would you like your life to work? Because you do have a good amount of control in terms of what your next 10 years will turn out like. But I think you have to know who you are and what drives you, what grounds you, what gives you happiness, in order to get to where you want to be. So I'm gonna go finish my brunch. I realize when we do talking videos that my bread gets cold very quickly, but I did think it was a lovely time having a sit down with you, and I hope you enjoyed this as well. Leave me any questions, comments, and thoughts down below. What is your perspective and direction for this new year? I love to hear about it and just chat with you. And as always, take care. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.